Hi everybody, this is Ben Smith in Abilene, Kansas, and I'm happy to share this wiki with you. This is something that could be used in, I've set this one up for AP Government, but the idea behind it, of course, could be used in any number of classes. And since the idea of this was to share how a wiki is made and not necessarily to create a brand new and original wiki, I was able to take some work that I was involved in over the summer at a conference where we created a web page about the Affordable Care Act, which is known in many circles as Obamacare. Now, the wiki that I made is not about, at least in its initial stages, about evaluating or judging whether or not someone feels that the Health Care Act is a good or a bad piece of legislation. And as I say down here, rather it is to investigate the ways in which the political parties craft a message through visual art that attempts to convince people that their beliefs are correct. As support materials, I've included a couple of links, one of which is here, where this takes you to a White House website where you can find a reading of the law. And then down here, you can navigate the various parts of the legislation in an easy to read format. So for this first page of this wiki, I want students to basically evaluate using 5 different competencies that we use in the world of primary source documents, the ways in which messages get crafted. And so I use questions that are based on sourcing, epistemology, agency, empathy, and historical significance. This is something that AP Government students could be expected to do. And so the way this is set up is that after students are granted access through membership, they would come to this page. The work that they would do in order to be assessed by me after they get the introduction to everything is to go up there and hit edit, as many of you have probably figured out by now. And then they come down here and they're given a chance to answer each of these questions. And so the first question is, what is the source for this cartoon? And so the student could say something like, the source for the cartoon is named Tolles, and he works through something called Universal. And then I would have the student put their name in parentheses afterwards. That way I know that they did it. Now, kids need to understand that as they do this, it's possible to edit somebody else's work, and so they need to pay special attention to respecting the work that other people do on there. And notice at this point that I have not asked anybody to actually go through and respond to anything everybody else has done. That's going to come later. So for each one of these questions, it's possible to have 15 or 16, or depending on how many students are in the class, perhaps 28 or 30 if you have a huge class, responses to each of these questions. So you need to be able to navigate through that and have your students navigate through it as well. And then go up and hit save, and then it takes them back to viewing the original page. But the editable feature here is what allows this to be a really neat community of learners. And so on page 2, we see something pretty similar. I've added a vocabulary component to it. And so they're going to have to identify what astroturf means and why Senator Reid is using it the way he does. And then there's 5 more questions based on those competencies from primary source documenting, but the questions are each different and have to do with this political cartoon. So in the same way, students would go up, they'd hit edit, they'd go down, they'd answer each question, put their name in parentheses next to it. Page 3 was one I had a whole lot of fun making. And by watching the tutorial videos is the way I was able to figure this out. On page 3, I added a Twitter widget here. And so when you hit edit, you can tell it to add a widget. And then in this case, I used another HTML. And I'm not going to go to Twitter right now because I'm not really sure about how quick it's going to be to get to it. But I went to Twitter and I entered a hashtag called Obamacare. And then there's a button called Embed This. And you click on it and it gives you the source code for being able to monitor that Twitter feed. Highlighted and copied it, went back to this widget here, and then pasted it in this box right here. Hit save, and then preview, and it shows you exactly what's going on. So even though in the editable part you can't see what it's doing, that's where the other widget is. When you hit save, and it goes back to its web page, you can see now what has popped up lately on Twitter through that hashtag called Obamacare. And the way I'm having students use this is they look at it and they find one of these tweets that looks particularly interesting, and then they could click on one of those and then investigate it further. And so what I've asked them to do here is analyze what point of view does the article come from, so it matches up with the theme of the first page. How do you know it does? And so I'm trying to get them to be a little bit more cognitive about things. And then I'm asking them, what sort of effect does the article have? Does it influence you to be more supportive of the act or to be more against it, and why? So they have to explain and justify pretty much everything that they do. And then for extra credit, and really this is a way for me to put additional things on here and show the way in which pages like this wiki page can be used to foster community outside of a classroom. I've encouraged them to pick an article that a classmate is linked to and then follow a set of directions on it. They can write an opinion article in order pages and attach it to this page using the file button. So I'm allowing them to edit this wiki in a way that goes just beyond adding text to this page. And so their opinion has to be based on the 2 articles, and then it's not really something that's debatable. It's just responding to something that another person has wrote. I'm not getting them into large-scale debates at this point. And at the very end, there's a chance for them to, if they choose to, they can write an essay by taking a position on the healthcare debate. And then this is a way to insert a downloadable document. Went back to the just to the link page, the link button up here under Edit, and then had it linked to a file that I already had. And so the student sees this, they see the download button, they can save it, open it up, and they have a 10-point rubric that kind of walks them through what the necessary part of their essay would be. And there it is. And at this point, even though I didn't say it really on the wiki directions, they could either put it'd probably be better for them to email it over to me since we're talking about mostly a virtual class anyway. So there you see that. And really, this is my first wiki, and I had a good time making it. I was especially proud of the way that this Twitter feed looks on there. And again, I wish I could take credit for it, but just by following through what they advocated on the tutorial, made that Twitter feed possible to add to it. So the neat thing about this is that students can basically create their own community, and they need to be taught to do so in an appropriate way, and they can work on and respect other students' work at the same time while being absolutely creative and utilizing a different set of skills to convey that they've learned what we want them to learn. Appreciate you watching, and I look forward to any comments that you have to make.